Undercover boss buys a sports car at his own dealership. Could not believe what he hears from the manager behind him. Falcon Velocity Motors, a name once whispered with reverence in garages across America. Not just a brand, but a legacy. Born in 1984 from the hands of a man who refused to quit. A man who turned rusted scrap metal and raw grit into the heartbeat of American muscle. That man is Richard Dalton, 67 years old now. A war veteran with steel in his spine and oil in his blood. After serving 2 tours overseas, he came home to a quiet town in Indiana and poured everything he had into one tiny garage. He worked with calloused hands, welding frames by day, sketching engines by night. He couldn't afford fancy tools. He built them. When the bank said no, he pawned his watch. And when people laughed at the idea of building American performance cars from scratch, he just smiled and kept working. Because Richard didn't build Falcon Velocity Motors to chase money. He built it to honor the values this country was built on: honesty, grit, and freedom. He built it for the men who'd saved up for their first big ride, for the father giving his son the keys to manhood, for the woman who wanted to feel power in her hands and pride in her heart. He built it for the people, and for decades it stayed that way. But time, as it always does, brought change. The company grew, investors joined, dealerships spread across the country. And though Richard stayed involved, the day-to-day passed to younger hands, executives who promised efficiency, automation, and profit margins. At first, Richard was proud, but then the letters started coming. A Vietnam vet said he'd been laughed at for wearing a flannel shirt while shopping. A loyal customer claimed he was pressured into paying $20,000 over asking. And one note, scribbled in shaky handwriting, simply said, "This isn't the Falcon I used to know." What happened, Mr. Dalton? That one hurt the most. Richard tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was one bad location. Maybe just a few bad apples. But in his gut, he knew. He'd built a legacy, and somewhere along the road it was being dismantled. He couldn't sleep. Night after night, he sat alone in his workshop, staring at the first Falcon prototype, still covered in dust but alive with memory. He remembered the first customer he ever sold to, a young man fresh out of trade school. He paid in cash, shaking from excitement. Richard knew he had to see for himself what was really happening at Falcon Velocity Motors. If you want to see how this undercover mission unfolds and how Richard confronts the truth, make sure to hit that subscribe button and join us for the whole story. So one morning, he folded his flannel shirt neatly, pulled on his old faded jeans, and grabbed the weathered baseball cap his late wife had given him for luck. No driver, no cameras, no announcement. Just a 67-year-old man walking into his own dealership. No one recognized him. And for the first time in decades, Richard Dalton became just another customer, a nobody. But what he saw, what he heard behind closed doors, would change the company forever. As Richard moved across the polished tile floor, something made him stop. A muffled voice, familiar in its slimy smoothness, filtered through the glass walls of a nearby office. He turned. Inside sat an elderly man, maybe in his late 70s, his back slightly hunched, hands trembling as he held a crumpled notepad. Across from him, leaning back in a leather chair, was the sales manager, Carl, a man with slick-back hair, a too-tight tie, and a smugness that reeked of practiced deception. Richard tilted his head, inching closer to the door, just enough to hear. Carl, with fake warmth. "Now listen, sir. I admire what you're doing. A graduation gift? For your nephew? That's powerful. That's love. But this isn't just a car, it's a Falcon. You're talking legacy, power, identity. You want that, right?" Old man, softly, voice cracking. "Yes, I do. My brother, he passed away in Afghanistan when his boy was only 5. I told myself, someday when the kid's grown, I'd get him a Falcon. My brother loved these cars. Always said the GTR was American thunder on wheels." Carl's expression didn't change. Not even a flicker of compassion. Carl, leaning forward, tone hardening slightly. "That's a beautiful story, really. But you're not the only one interested in this unit. Truth is, we got a doctor from Chicago who's been calling every hour for it. If you walk away now, it's gone by morning. Old man confused. But the sticker says $160,000, Carl scoffing. Technically, yes, but for buyers like you, we recommend the VIP Legacy Package. That adds exclusive coverage, ceramic coating, extended service, custom plates, and of course, expedited delivery. That brings it to $178,499. The old man blinked. His lip quivered. Old man, gently, "Son, that's almost 20 grand more. I've worked 3 jobs. I cashed out my pension early. Can't we just do the base?" Carl, coldly, voice dropping. "Sir, you either want to keep your promise to your nephew or keep arguing with me about numbers. Your choice." Silence. The old man's hands began to shake. Old man, "I promised I'd honor his father. He's got no one else, and I already told him I was coming to pick it up today." Carl stood, pressing the contract across the desk like it was a weapon. Carl, calmly, almost condescending. "Then sign. Don't think, just sign. Or someone else drives it off tonight, and your nephew gets a keychain instead of a dream." Outside the office, Richard's face darkened. His fists clenched at his sides. He had seen manipulation before, in politics, in war. But this, using grief as a bargaining chip, turning love into leverage, that wasn't just unethical, that was evil. Richard, under his breath, "Not in my company." And with that, he turned and walked straight toward the front desk. A storm was about to hit Falcon Velocity Motors, and this time it was personal. Trying to steady his breath after what he'd just overheard in the glass office, Richard stepped away, his hands clenched, heart heavy. But before he could process it, another trap was waiting. Out of nowhere, a salesman in tight pants, flashy shoes, and enough cologne to fumigate a warehouse intercepted him like a predator spotting weakness. Dylan, all charm, all teeth. "Hey, there you are. You've got great taste, sir. GTR, right? You're looking at a beast." Richard gave a courteous nod. Richard, "Just wondering what the full cost would be." Dylan, grinning. "Absolutely. So base price is $140,000. But of course, we bundle it with the mandatory Falcon Gold package, an additional $15,000. Richard, frowning. "Mandatory? What's in it?" Dylan, casual. "Premium wax, Falcon floor mats, ceramic coating, tire insurance, underbody shield, and the senior protection plan. That one's a $7,000 value." Richard, "Senior protection?" Dylan, smirking. "Yeah, for folks over 50, slower throttle response, big letter gauges, extra sensors. Helps if, reaction time isn't what it used to be." Before Richard could reply, Carl, the sales manager from earlier, walked over, holding a tablet and flashing a fake smile. Carl, smoothly interrupting, "Dylan, everything okay here?" Dylan, "Just closing the GTR package for our gentleman here." Carl to Richard, "Sir, let me explain something. These cars, they move fast. Our clientele doesn't flinch at numbers. They want performance and convenience. That's what the gold package delivers." Richard, evenly, "But it's not optional?" Carl, leaning in, condescending, "We find it helps avoid confusion. When folks buy a Falcon, they expect the full experience. We've tailored this package with people like you in mind." Richard, "People like me?" Carl, grinning, "Mature buyers. We respect that, which is why we also require pre-approved financing. No offense, but we've had issues with walk-ins wasting everyone's time." Dylan, nodding eagerly, "Yeah, policy. Keeps things smooth." There it was. No shame, no subtlety, just pure exploitation. Targeting older buyers, adding useless packages, pressuring them with fake urgency and humiliating assumptions. Richard's knuckles went white. His company, his legacy, had become a circus run by wolves and sales badges. Richard, quietly but with edge, "I appreciate your transparency." Carl, smugly, "Always here to help. If you're serious, We can get you behind the wheel today. Richard, cold smile. Oh, I'm serious. Dead serious. He turned away, jaw clenched, chest burning. These men weren't selling cars. They were weaponizing trust. But they had no idea who they had just tried to hustle. And in a few minutes, they were going to find out. He couldn't hold back anymore. The truth finally came out, and Richard was ready to take action. If you haven't subscribed yet, now's the time. Don't miss the moment when justice is served and the dealership is saved. Richard stepped through the showroom, every step heavy with the weight of disappointment and betrayal. The old brass keychain, worn smooth by years of use, dangled from his flannel pocket, catching the light. A symbol of everything Falcon Velocity Motors once stood for. His voice was steady, but there was an unmistakable steel beneath it, fierce and resolute. Richard, voice steady but fierce. Carl, now. Carl spun around, caught off guard. For a brief second, his confident mask cracked, revealing a flicker of panic. Carl, defensive, sneering. Who the hell do you think you... Richard cut him off without hesitation, pulling the key from his pocket and holding it high for everyone to see. It was the original Falcon prototype key, aged but unmistakable, engraved with the Falcon emblem and Richard's own signature etched into the metal. A collective gasp rippled through the room, like the sound of a storm breaking. Carl, stammering, voice cracking. Wait, no, you're Mr. Dalton? Richard's eyes burned with cold fire as he stepped closer, the room shrinking around them. Richard, calm, cold. Founder, CEO, and until 10 minutes ago, your silent witness. Silence fell. Thick, suffocating silence. Even the polished engines in the showroom seemed to hold their breath. Richard turned his gaze toward the old man, who had been quietly watching the scene unfold. The man's face was etched with worry and hope, tears threatening to spill over. Richard's voice softened, full of genuine compassion. Richard, sir, you will not pay a cent over the true value of this car. That GTR, it's yours, on the house, in honor of your brother's service to this country. The old man's lips trembled as tears streamed down his face. His hands shook as he reached out, unable to find the words. A mixture of gratitude and disbelief filled the air like a healing balm. Richard then shifted his gaze back to Carl and Dylan. The fire in his eyes blazed brighter, righteous fury burning through years of accumulated frustration. Richard, voice thunderous, you humiliated a veteran. You lied to a grieving uncle. You used my name, my legacy, as your shield for greed and deception. You've forgotten what this company was built on. He stepped forward, voice dropping into a cold finality. Richard, you're fired, effective immediately. Pack your things and leave. And if I ever hear of a single dishonest act in my company again, there will be consequences far worse than losing your job. The room remained frozen in stunned silence. Even the youngest salesman looked away, shame creeping into his posture. Richard took a slow breath, allowing the weight of the moment to settle over everyone present. The truth had finally arrived, and with it, the promise of a new beginning. That afternoon, Richard stood tall in front of the gleaming GTR, grease still smudged on his hands from a rare moment spent with the mechanics, reminding himself of the company's roots. The hum of the showroom was quiet, but the weight of what had happened hung heavy in the air. His voice, when he finally spoke, carried frustration, disappointment, but also fierce hope. Richard, I started Falcon for people like him, the honest Americans with dreams, grit, and integrity. People who work hard their whole lives, who deserve to feel proud behind the wheel of a car, built with heart and soul. If any of you think these cars are just about power or profit, you've lost sight of what these wheels really mean. He let the words settle, then slowly scanned the room. His gaze was steady and piercing, meeting the eyes of every employee, young and old, seasoned and new. Richard, we're going back to basics. No more fake packages designed to trap seniors and families. No more senior protection plans that shame or manipulate those who trust us. No more pushing people to pay more than what's fair. From this day forward, Falcon runs on respect. A hush fell over the crowd. The silence was thick, as if the employees were letting the gravity of Richard's words sink deep. Then Dylan, The young salesman who had pushed the inflated packages stepped forward. His face was flushed, the color telling stories of nervousness, guilt, and hope all at once. His hands trembled slightly. Dylan, voice shaky, almost pleading, "Mr. Dalton, I was trained to do it this way, to push those packages, upsell every chance I got, close the deal no matter what. I didn't realize how much it was hurting people. Like the old man we saw today. I'm sorry, I really am. I want a second chance. Please, I want to do it right." Richard looked at Dylan for a long moment, searching the young man's eyes for truth, for sincerity. Slowly, a nod of understanding came. Richard, soft but firm, "Everyone deserves a chance to make things right. But it starts with honesty, Dylan. No more shortcuts, no more tricks. You'll be part of our new training program. From now on, we sell cars, not lies." A collective breath seemed to release from the room. The tension eased, replaced by a fragile hope. Some of the staff exchanged looks, some with relief, others with newfound determination. The next day, Richard sat alone in his office. The phone in his hand felt heavier than usual, not because of the device itself, but because of what it symbolized, a chance to repair trust. He began dialing one number after another. Richard, into phone, voice steady but sincere. "Hello, this is Richard Dalton from Falcon Velocity Motors. I'm calling personally to apologize. If we've ever made you feel pressured or charged unfairly during your purchase, that's not who we are, and it never should have been. Starting today, we're committed to honesty and respect." He paused, letting the words hang. "Richard, as a token of goodwill, and to show you we mean it, we're offering 1 full year of free service on your vehicle. No strings attached. We want to make this right." The voices on the other end ranged from surprise to tears to gratitude. Customer 1, voice trembling, "Mr. Dalton, thank you. I never expected a call like this. It means a lot, really." Customer 2, with relief, "I was scared to complain. I thought it was just how things worked. Thank you for doing this." Richard felt a lump in his throat. The job wasn't done, but this was a start. He promised himself to never let greed shadow Falcon again. 1 week later, the old man returned, this time with his 17-year-old nephew. The boy was quiet, awestruck, and wide-eyed as he took in the sight of the red Falcon GTR gleaming under the showroom lights. Richard handed the keys to the boy with a gentle smile. Richard, softly, "This car was built to fly. Make your uncle proud, make your father proud, and never let anyone tell you you're not worth it." The boy nodded, eyes shining with tears and determination. The engine roared to life, echoing through the streets like a promise that Falcon Velocity Motors was back on the road. Not just as a company, but as a family, a community, and a legacy of honor. And deep down, Richard knew this was only the beginning.